The wind. The wind for us cyclists plays a huge role. It can make for easy riding, it can make for incredibly hard riding, and it can make for potentially some scary riding.
But in this video, we're going to show you how to use that wind to your advantage and make riding in the wind an absolute breeze. Sorry about the pun. First up, let's start with setup. Now, there is a huge variety of wheels to choose from. You can get super deep section aero wheels, or you can get super shallow light climbing wheels. But when the wind is blowing, you want to choose your wheels very carefully. Now, if you have the option, super shallow wheels are going to be preferable because they're going to be so much easier to handle when the wind is blowing. If you went for super deep ones, probably a little bit deeper than these, and the wind is blowing you from the side, it's going to be a struggle to handle.
Clothing choice is also going to play a massive part in your riding when it comes to riding in the wind. Now, if you're riding in a big jacket, it's going to act like a parachute. It's going to slow you down and it's going to make your riding quite buffeting, making you feel quite unstable on the bike. Now, I'd highly suggest you go for some tight fitting cycling gear like the one I'm wearing now. Now, nowadays you can get some thermal bib tights and jackets that keep you warm but are also well fitting, so it keeps you nice and efficient while riding on the bike. And if you're riding the wet weather, you can even get capes like this that keep nice and tight to the skin and also to your clothing so that you can cut through the wind like knife through butter.
Knowing what direction the wind is coming from is paramount to riding in it, and as we all know, the wind direction can have a huge impact on our riding. But how do we know what direction the wind is coming from? Well, things like looking at trees or the grass, looking what way they're blowing is a great indicator, but also flags, or if you're lucky enough, a windsock is great. This is going to give you all the indicators you need, but you can also get apps on your phone that can tell you where the wind is coming from on your route, and this can also help plan your route. I've always wanted to do a whole route with a tailwind the whole way. I'll plan that.
Now we know what wind direction we're riding against, let's get into the nitty-gritty on how we're riding them. Now let's start off with a cyclist's worst nightmare, the headwind. Now, before we get on to the positioning on the road and how we can use our riding buddies to make ourselves save energy and become more efficient in riding in the wind, what can we do ourselves to make our riding that bit easier? Now, as we know, one of the biggest forces we're fighting against is the wind, especially when it's coming from a head-on position. So first thing we want to think about is try to get more aerodynamic. Reduce the drag. Now, if you drop your elbows, roll in the shoulders, and drop the head a bit, I would say this is one of the most aerodynamic positions you can ride in. But everyone's different and everyone's bodies are different and they can suit different positions. But this is the position I like to ride in majority of the time, especially when I'm trying to get as aerodynamic as possible and I'm fighting against that horrific headwind. Now, once we know how to be more efficient when riding on our own into a headwind, the next step is learning how to be more efficient and saving energy using our riding buddies. Now, the single biggest energy saver is slipstream. And so if you're riding with a riding partner like Manon here, I can use her to save energy by sitting behind her. Now, in a headwind, you want to be directly behind. And the closer you are to the wheel in front, the more benefit you're going to get. If you're in a bigger group, you're going to save even more energy. So Manon at the front is going to be expelling about 30% more energy than me, who's sitting behind her. Perfect.
tailwind. Now, I think every single cyclist out there will agree with me that the tailwind is the best kind of wind. It pushes you along at some serious speeds without you really having to push on the pedals that hard. But when you're riding in the group and you're sitting in the wheels, it can be a little bit tricky to keep up just because the slipstream is less. So, top tip, the time to do your turns at the front is when there's a tailwind, and then when you've got a strong headwind, sit in the wheels so you can take some shelter.
Now, last but not least, crosswinds. Now, when watching bike racing from the comfort of our sofa or armchair, we're hoping for crosswinds. It makes for really interesting, exciting racing, and it also creates an incredible spectacle of all the echelons lined up down the road.
Yeah, when riding in a crosswind, you want to have a really strong position on the bike, and that's going to help you so you don't get blown away in a certain direction. And in my opinion, you want to be on the drop. This is going to make you a lot stronger on the bike, lowers your centre of gravity, and another thing you want to watch is the hedges. When there's gaps, gates, the wind is going to come and gush, so be ready for that.
Yeah, now it has to be said, when you get a gust of wind through a gate or an opening in a hedge, it can really send you off balance. But where crosswinds gets really interesting is when you're riding in a group, isn't it?
So when you're riding in a crosswind and it's coming, let's say, from the left, you want to be sitting to the side of the person you're next to. So in this instance, Hank is taking all the wind and I'm nice and sheltered. But it kind of varies where you sit. So say if it's more of a head crosswind, you'll sit maybe more on the hip and vice versa. So you kind of want to play around, go backwards and forwards and find out where you're getting the most shelter. But one thing you want to be careful of when you are drafting from the side is if there's an open section and Hank gets blown with a gust of wind, he's obviously going to move over and I'm quite close to him. So you want to be aware of that and leave a little bit of room.
So there you have it, a few top tips for riding in the wind. And sometimes it takes that bit more practice to really try and master it. Let us know in the comment section below what you think of these tips.
Yeah, let us know how you got on, and if you did enjoy this video, as always, give it a big thumbs up, and we will see you in the next video.
Ciao for now.